And welcome to Proud Mouse LinkedIn Live. We are talking today to Ashley and Yohance. They are two Sonic Boom coaching members. They're alumni who spent really the last 3 months with me because I run the Sonic Boom pro coaching program in a group coaching situation where we just really worked through and workshopped a lot of different aspects. Now, I'm not going to bore you with all the details of Sonic Boom coaching. I want you guys to hear a little bit more from each of them. So I'm going to introduce them very quickly. So Ashley is the owner of Beyond the Plan, where she partners with financial services firms as a fractional financial behavioral officer. She's also the host of a great podcast, Planning and Beyond. And we're going to have links, and I'll put those in chat here in just a few minutes. And then Yohance is the CEO and wealth advisor at Money Script Wealth Management. He has 2 podcasts, Becoming and Attending, which he just started, and also Only Human. And I will go ahead and as we get into this, I'm going to share some links in the chat. So hi, guys. You guys ready for this?
Ready.
Get it.
Good. All right. First question. How did the group coaching, being in a cohort with other like-minded experts like yourself, help you grow as a podcaster and ultimately improve the overall success of the show? Ashley, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me first was that it provided a lot of clarity for just my overall messaging and branding. The group helped me with that. Matt, you helped me with that. Prior to, I had recorded a few episodes, but really didn't have any type of clear messaging around what I was saying. So I think the biggest thing going through this program is that it helped me just clarify my messaging a lot more from a branding standpoint, know what I'm talking about. Why am I talking about this? Why does this matter? Create consistent messaging, and then, build that confidence there too around speaking about it.
All right. What about you, Yohance?
Ashley, somehow I missed that. Ashley said you'd only done a few podcasts prior to our coaching.
Yeah, she only had done a few.
Wow.
We talked about this.
But then you came on my podcast and you were like the best guest we ever had. By the way, my entire team said that about you. They said,
oh my gosh.
do every show like this. Just
Too
interview
kind.
her.
That was you,
like,
my friend.
what?
That was all because of you.
No.
Going through this program. That's why it was so great.
And you are a natural, Ashley. You are. Thank you. I have to agree with everything Ashley said, and to add on to it, the most impactful part of being in the coaching program was the camaraderie that we had with each other. I learned so much from you and our other teammates, and it gave us a safe space to also give each other criticism. Which, as Ashley said, oh, bless your heart, and then loaded us with a bunch of criticism, which was great. But that was what I enjoyed the most and again, being in that room, Ashley, you fooled us because you carried yourself as someone you carry yourself as someone that does a lot of public speaking. That part was obvious. But the camera can be a little bit scarier because it's just you and the camera, and it's just staring at you saying, well, what do you got for me now? And I felt that we were all able to learn from each other and take certain things from each other to help us raise the level in our podcast.
So just to be abundantly clear, Ashley repeated multiple sessions that she only had 3 to 4 podcasts in the can.
But she got on my podcast, and I'm getting on like wow, she's great. I'm like,
okay, clarification.
So it made me forget all of that.
I'd done several. I'd guested on several podcasts prior to launching my own. However, when I started SBC, I think I had only released maybe 10 episodes, maybe 10. So Yohance, I had been on several podcasts as a guest and felt confident in that forum, but being the host, that was definitely new territory for me.
A different game, right? I mean, it really is. OPP, being on other people's podcasts, is a fantastic marketing strategy.
OPP.
But yeah, I know. Yeah.
Okay.
We did that for a reason. Yeah.
Sorry, my brain. I was born in the 80s.
Say,
grew up in the 90s.
me.
I went somewhere else.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
So just so you guys know,
yes.
we've said that for 8 years now. Like this has been something Kirk and I leaned into that really early on because that's one of our 9 podcast growth strategies. And I said that somewhere at a conference that I was speaking at, and somebody came up to me and said, "That's terribly inappropriate." I was like, my name is Proudmouth. There's so much irreverence in everything that we do, but I just want to highlight something here because what just happened there between you two is exactly what happened on every call. Right. So it was so much fun I've always loved group coaching. So that's always been what I've wanted to do because one, just to be fully transparent, it's easier on the coach, right? I mean, yes, we have a great workbook, we have curriculum, you guys have homework, all of that great stuff. But man, there are a lot of times where I just sat back and you guys are like, blah, 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 and you guys are, talking to each other and, ribbing each other and praising each other and, commenting on this, like, oh, I really like this, or why did you do this? I don't really understand it. It was so much fun to sit back and watch.
It was fun to receive it all. I'll tell you that. It was incredible. Can we do one more session?
Well, so I need to talk to you guys about that because we're actually offering, we're going to offer continuing coaching for SBC Pro members only. And so we haven't really formatted that. Nicole on our team is working on that, but it's interesting because, so I've got SBC Pro 2 now, we're 3 calls in.
Oh, nice.
And,
Lucky
I've got
folks.
it's so different. It's real. I mean, they are not, we've got one that is like they're a company that advisors, they're like almost like an SEI or like an asset mark. And so they've got that. We've got one who is a pretty standard run of the mill financial advisor who basically works with everybody. It's so funny. Everybody's beating up on this poor woman. I mean, they're just eating her alive. We've got one who has done, they get 1 million impressions on their website a month.
Wow.
Yeah. He's missed the last 2 calls because they work with federal employees. So he's been a little bit busy.
You don't need to say anything else.
So now he's getting 2 million impressions.
Oh my God, dude. And it's hysterical. I mean, so he's actually, I've known him for a long time. I've actually known him since 2010, 11. And so he was showing me his statistics and talk about that parabolic, all of the sudden. And it really was about 7 months before the election happened. Everybody started to get worried. Right. And it went up and up and up anyway. And then we've got another person who is a retired CFA who decided that she wanted to go ahead and start her own financial services practice. And she went from making 7+ figures a year to 5 figures a year. And, the transition of how she wants to use her podcast and talk about that transition. It's just so much fun to watch them interact with each other. And especially because I didn't think that this class was going to be so different because the first class, I mean, Ashley, you were the outlier, right? I mean, we had 3, 4 other financial advisors who were there, and then we had you. And in fact, why don't we just take a second? Why don't you guys talk just quickly about your shows? We're going to talk about a little bit more about where they are, where they are. Let's talk about in this point in time. Tell the audience, what your show's about, how often you do it, stuff like that.
You want to go first, Yohance?
Why would you do that to me? Sure. Yes. I guess you went first last time. My name is Yohance Harrison, and I'm a podcaster. I've been a podcaster for 5 years. Yep. I started my podcasting with the Money Script podcast, and we did over 130 episodes, had a lot of fun. And this guy named Matt kept bugging me at all of these conferences we go to. And he said, your show's good. It's not great. Yeah. And I begged of him why. And he said, well, you know what? I got something for you. I'm doing a coaching program. Join it. And he said, I don't even have the details yet, but you just need to be in it. I said, I don't care what it is, Matt. Yep. Sign me up. Yep. And one of the first big punches in the face that I took as I stepped into the ring of the coaching was, though I thought as a financial advisor, I know who my audience is. Mm-hmm. As a podcaster, I had no clue. And so my podcast was all over the place. So what came from that is Matt and the rest of the group encouraged me to fork my podcast into 2 new shows. One is Only Human, And that is a podcast that is directed directly towards advisors, where we talk about the intersection of AI coming into our space and how we cope with it. We have a very fun segment we do at the end of each show called Marry, Divorce, Date, where we talk about technology.
It's terrible. Can I just say it's a terrible segment, and it's really anxiety provoking.
That's why I love it. And I've already looking at some of the other episodes where I have it. The spikes kind of go up, telling me that people like that part. So yes, and for some reason, some of the technology companies are starting to listen to me now. They're like, oh, wait a minute. He's got a pulse on the industry. Yeah. The second show is becoming an attending. As a financial advisor, I focus on working with physicians that are going from medical school to residency, and residency to becoming an attending physician, specifically in the ERs, where I focus most of my time. So I've interviewed a lot of my clients to understand what they were going through during those times. And now I'm bringing different professionals that are in that space to talk about their transition, because it's a tough time. You talk about, Matt, your new cohort that went from 7 figures down to 5. Well, that's what happens in the physician world. They go from 0 to not quite a hero to big time hero, and not a lot of financial lessons are taught in between that time. So at one point it was like, oh my gosh, I'm shrinking my audience and it's going to be so small, but I'm going to be the loudest mouth in the audience. So I'm okay with it.
I do have to say that I should have said this at the beginning of the first class. You signed up like 3 months before we even had any program in place, because I remember where we were at a conference and we were sitting having dinner together.
Yeah, we said we're not going to follow the crowd, just you and I were going to have a nice quiet dinner, and that's what we did.
Yeah.
And I said, yes, sign me up.
It was future proof, wasn't it? Because
I think it was future proof. Yeah, it was in Miami. Yep.
There was
not Miami. I mean, California.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There was a concert happening and everybody's like, oh, we're going to go see the concert. And you looked at me and you're like, dude, you want to go see the concert? I was like, no, I don't want to go see the concert. So we had tacos. It was great. All right, Ashley, let's talk about your show.
I'm sad that I missed the taco party on the beach. sad that I wasn't there for that. So my podcast, Planning and Beyond, is, it's newer. It's not as old and distinguished as Yohance's there. I had been guesting on podcasts before, and so the work that I do serving as a financial behavior officer for advisors for their firms, wanting to really just kind of take my reach up a notch and to be able to offer information, resources, and help advisors, outside of just this service model that I offer. So Planning and Beyond launched it last July. And it is focused, my audience really is financial advisors who are interested in all of the human first, B5, financial psychology, all of that fun kind of stuff. The tagline there is where financial planning meets human understanding. So being able to, take financial planning, but how can we also understand our clients as well? At this point today, I have released 20 episodes. So yeah, I feel like it's like I don't know, like if 20 feels like, we're getting somewhere, getting there. And right now they release every other week. Season 2 will wrap up at the end of May. Season 1 will wrap up at the end of May. Season 2, looking at being able to hopefully release weekly. So to increase that release rate is something that I would like to be able to do now that I've got 1 season under my belt. And now that I'm implementing some of Yohance's processes and all of the great things that I learned from my cohort members in SBC, I have a little bit more confidence going into season 2 to be able to step it up a notch. I have had the honor of being listed on Kits's website, not as a top podcast in behavioral finance, but at the bottom underneath Brendan Fraser and Daniel Crosby's an additional resource. And can I just tell you, to be listed as an additional resource was really, amazing. Mm-hmm. Blew my mind. I really attribute some of that to, the growth moments that I had with the podcast. Again, being able to confidently communicate and have that clarity around my branding and messaging and carrying that forward into the episodes there.
Yeah. That's freaking cool, man. I mean,
I've never been so
really,
excited to
really.
be third place. Like,
I'll tell you, first place isn't always what it's cracked up to be, because then everybody's now chasing your ass, and so I don't necessarily like that one as much. Well, so you said something though, Ashley, that I want to make sure that I pull out and kind of highlight, which is one of the other neat things about the SBC program is because you're working with experienced podcasters. A lot of the podcasters have some really good systems in place. Yohance has very good systems in place. And I was very, very grateful that he decided that he was going to go ahead and share that with everybody. And I know, Ashley, you're implementing stuff. Dave, who is another person, who's involved in it, he's actually implementing some of those things. He's already done hundreds of shows, including a YouTube channel that has like 60,000 followers. And he was sharing YouTube tips, which, I mean, we talk about the video component in SBC,
Those
but
work.
oh my God. Oh my God.
I just started. So
Really?
we just launched the first 3 episodes of each on YouTube, and I'm using his process, and overnight my YouTube results are gangbusters. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It's almost scary, because I was like, what are these bots? Oh no, these are people. These are people. Okay.
They're humans. They're humans. Well, so that's the huge core that we really wanted to focus on is, when I talk about SBC specifically, it's about performance, which we talked probably more than you guys may even wanted to about performance. We talked about planning, right? To make sure that your episodes, everything that has to do with the way that you describe the show, to, what your episodes are going to be like and what the format and how the show is going to flow. And then the last one, of course, is promotion. And Yohance, I've got some slides of some screenshots for you we're going to talk about in just a minute. But the second question that I want to have or ask you guys is, you both talked a little bit about this, but I want to make sure that we encapsulate that in this broadcast, is really about imposter syndrome, right? And so, Ashley, you have already used the word confidence a couple of times, but did either of you have any sort of imposter syndrome? And then what happened with that when you got into SBC? Ashley, you're up.
yeah, I figured I'd be first. Yeah, this time. I feel like imposter syndrome and I are just best friends in general. So like, it's like one of those things that's just kind of always there for me. And I think that that's true for a lot of professionals, those who are out there and putting themselves out there in the space. But so yes, like absolutely. Um, it's one thing to be asked questions, right? I didn't feel like as a guest, like the pressure really was always on me. Um, and then to move kind of to the other seat and now to be the host, the one that's quote unquote responsible for the content, the flow, just everything. Yeah, absolutely. I felt and probably still do to some extent. And I'm okay with that. Like I'm comfortable in that space. But yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where I recognize now when I go back and listen to some of the early episodes, like I was really floundering in a lot of ways. I don't know how obvious it is, maybe just for a listener, but I know like when I listen to myself, I'm like, oh, girl, bless your heart. Like you, like, didn't have some of the things, right, that I learned, from Yohance, from Dave, from Mark, from you, Matt, right, that really played a role in building that confidence, for me and being able to quiet down the imposter syndrome, old girl over there, at least for a little bit around a few things. So yeah, I mean, I definitely something that I struggled with. I don't know about you, Yohance.
Oh yeah, definitely struggled with it, especially. So part of the hurdle that I was up against was being a podcast that was 5 years old, 100+ episodes in, and I felt like I was going through the motions a lot unless I had a guest like Matt that I was really excited about. A lot of times I was okay, let me just do this podcast because this is what I'm supposed to do because I'm a podcaster. And and that had a lot to do with not knowing who the audience was that I wanted to speak directly to, and having this more generalization, which I'm sure the other advisors getting beat up, that you said getting beat up on a little bit in the new cohort. But once I was able to put that cape on, if you will, this is who I am, this is what my podcast is, I was able to quiet down the imposter syndrome a bit and feel that confidence of going and say, no, this is what my show is about. I know what my structure is. I know my questions. I know I'm going to ask, marry, divorce, date, no matter how uncomfortable they get, and we're going to have some fun with it. And so that helped, definitely helped diminish it. Now, I'm not going to say it's gone.
Yeah.
I still deal with it, especially when I got to interview Daniel Crosby, which all of his books are behind me somewhere. And I had to do jumping jacks, meditate, some push-ups, had to do everything just to kind of calm my nerves so I could sit there and not just drool over the fact that he was talking to just me. It's like, oh, this is so awesome. So but knowing that I had a structure, knowing I was talking to, gave me that confidence to quiet the imposter syndrome a little bit. But I have some guests coming up that I'm excited about, and I hear the little voice like, who are you to interview them? And I'm like, no, I'm Yohance. I'm a podcaster, and this is what I do. And they want to be on my show as much as I want them to be on my show as well.
They said yes. And I have to I love that you brought that up, right? Is because if they said yes, you are worthy, right? I remember, so I interviewed Rick Edelman.
I'm gonna need to write that down, Matt. Yeah, I think like that. Yeah, I'm gonna need to write that one down. Yeah.
Yeah. So I interviewed Rick Edelman, and and he comes on the show. By the way, he was unbelievably cool. And I was just thinking, I got done with the show and I was like, hey, what did you think? And he's like, dude, you're really good at this. And I was like, oh snap. I was like, woo. But then I got off I was like, I just interviewed a billionaire, like a legit multiple times over, the largest RIA, whatever, all of that stuff. Right. And I just thought to myself, I literally DM'd him on Twitter. Right. And so, that's the sort of stuff. A lot of times we don't swing for the fences when it comes for guests. And if they say yes, that is your permission. And I don't know. Well, I guess I'm just arrogant enough where I'm just like, I'm just going to interview anybody. You can throw me anybody. I don't care. Oprah comes on the show, I'm going to ask her the same damn questions, because here's the deal. Yohance is exactly what you're saying. And Ashley, where you're leaning into now, I've got a process, right? I know exactly what the format of the show is. I know how long the show is going to be. I know what my desired outcomes for each of the show and each of the guests and how they're supposed to feel and think and, respond at the end of the show. And so I think one of the big things about SBC that we wanted to instill in all of you guys is to make sure that you have that focus and intention, which is what a good coach does. Focus and intention to perform at your best. All right. We're going to go a little bit over on time, but that's all right. Well, maybe it is for me, maybe not for you guys. Ashley, I want to talk a little bit more about the confidence component, because you had been on a lot of other people's podcasts, OPPs, for quite a while. You are a highly sought after guest, and then you did flip the script and now you became the host. What are some of the things that you have done to just increase your confidence from the first episodes to what you're doing now to make it feel like you're just happier with the overall show?
Yeah, some of what we've already kind of mentioned. So I started scripting or planning just the content a lot better. So pretty arrogant, I guess, of myself. For maybe some of you who don't know, I come from the mental health space. And so I've been practicing doing couples therapy, family therapy for, almost 15 years. And so I was like, I'm pretty good at asking questions, and I'm pretty good at asking personal questions. Like if I just have an idea of what I want to talk about, it will be quote unquote fine. And so it wasn't in my mind. So I learned kind of in the program, like if I just start really planning out and scripting, my intro, the questions, the, outro and call to action. What I've recently also started doing is scripting out transitions. And I think we talked about this maybe on our last call. I had a really cool moment with a guest more recently. And she's an educator who's moved into financial services. And we got done wrapping up, and she was complimenting me just on the flow of it. And she started saying, I love how, when we would switch to kind of the next question, like, or topic, like you would summarize what we just like went over. And so like those very just intentional, like strategic, right, kind of moves and being thorough kind of in my planning, have that I think has just been the biggest like game changer, at least in my confidence while I'm interviewing, like in the episode.
Yeah. Well, part of that too, because you and I at least have some of the same education, that sort of summary, rephrase, reframe technique that we use as therapists, does, I believe, make you an amazing podcast host. The other thing is you actually know how to listen, instead of, being a host that's just waiting to ask the next question, which I have been on a bunch of those where I'm just like, really? Like, it was like, when you learn how to drive a manual, which I'm sure nobody knows how to do that anymore, but, you just, pop the clutch and you're, and so, yeah. All right. Well, I think Yohance froze.
Oh man.
Dude, because you're looking.
At least it's not one of those weird faces though that you froze into, because this is live. So my goodness, how embarrassing that would have been if it was like a weird face on like live.
If he had a really goofy look on his face, that would have made me really happy. All right. Well, so Yohance, I don't know if you just want to stop and start your camera, but I'm switching to you now, my friend. And so we're going to go ahead and talk about some of the audience engagement techniques that you've used. And so we talked about something in SBC, which was the idea of doing the opposite of posting and ghosting, which, by the way, I have to come up with a positive term for that, which I have yet to do. And you did that, right? And so there you go. And so now I'm going to go ahead and switch the screen here. And so let's talk about these statistics. Now, I know they're really, really small, but you want to go ahead?
Yes. So these are 3 examples of me posting about my podcast prior to starting SBC. Or posting about anything in general. And as you can see, I interviewed Diana Cabrices, who is amazing. If you were a podcaster in the financial services field,
I think I commented. I think I'm one of the 3 there.
You might be one of the 3 comments. Yeah. Ooh, thank you for indulging me and making a comment. But she's awesome. She's great. I was a fanboy interviewing her. And I posted it and I was like, 652 impressions. That felt pretty good because I was usually used to getting 400 to 600, but I was known for posting and ghosting. Like, let me post this and let me move on to something else and spend no time on LinkedIn again until I'm ready to post. But what I learned from SBC, next slide, is how to actually engage after I post. So this is, let's see. Which show is that? Okay, so that's a show that I did on the first becoming an attending. And as you can see, the impressions went up to 7,000 because I would post and actually take 15 or 20 minutes, because in the first 15, 20 minutes, I'm going to get a like or I'm going to get a comment or something. Or what I've also learned how to do is kind of go behind the back door, if you will. I'll message someone and say, hey, you're a good friend of mine. I'm a good friend of yours. Let's do some collaboration. Yep. I'm going to comment on your next post. Why don't you comment on mine? Sure, no problem. And it gets the conversation going. So applying those techniques, as you can see, I mean, I don't know I know I'm in finance, but the percentage gain there is 700% or something like that. Yeah. It's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot. So I've learned a lot. So as you can see, my content performance, this is over the last 90 days. I mean, I've never seen performance like that before. 25,000 impressions. Now, again, compared to some folks that are doing 1 million, that's like, oh, that's it. But for me to go from a few thousand to 25,000 impressions, I know that I'm actually creating a space and a voice on LinkedIn, which is where this is being broadcast live right now. So I look forward to commenting on this a little bit later.
So if you guys were going to just take, a couple of seconds here and speak to the audience, other people who are podcasting currently, and if you could say one thing about convincing them to go ahead and join SBC in our next cohort, what would it be? Yohance, we'll start with you.
I got to go with the Nike. Just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. You're going to learn something. You're going to make some new friends. And worst case, you're going to meet 3 or 4 people that can be on your podcast because they're going to be in the cohort with you.
All right, Ashley, What do you got?
Yeah, facts. You're definitely gonna make some new friends there. Yeah, I guess for me, the longer that you wait and put off taking action on something like this, like just think, when you record and kind of like release an episode, just that time lapse in there in between, like you could already be making your next episode significantly better by just going ahead, taking the plunge, just do it, as Johannes said. So, you know, I wouldn't wait. Yeah, I would do it. I'm so glad that I'm truly like so glad that I did. So yeah.
Well, if you guys want to know more about it, here we go. You can either take a picture of this with your phone, or I just put the link into the chat here to make sure that you guys can go ahead and set some time. This is a free strategy session. I offer it to absolutely everybody. So if you're a podcaster, if you're not a podcaster, if you just want to go ahead and just bounce some ideas off of me, you just go ahead and do this. The 20 minutes usually turns into 30, so please block 30.
I was wondering if you were going to disclose that. I was like, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
20 minutes.
Yeah, usually it's 30. But you see, we're trying to block at 20 so I can actually have like bathroom breaks and get a drink of water between all of these sessions. But I would love to be able to help you. I think it was pretty clear with Ashley and Johannes that this is something that I absolutely love. Man, I was so excited every time I got to talk to you guys. I love the progress that you guys made. I took a very long hiatus from doing any sort of coaching. And now that I'm back in the saddle, I am over the moon about having the opportunity to do something that I love more than anything, which is helping people get great behind the microphone. So, all right, everybody. Well, I want to thank you very much for being here today. Ashley, you're awesome. Johannes, you're awesome. And please make sure that you guys all click the links that I put into the chat and on social so that you guys can subscribe to Ashley's podcast and Johannes' 2 podcasts. And of course, pay attention. That's not the right word. Stay tuned. That's where I wanted to go, because Proudmouth is starting a new podcast called Rise Above the Noise, which we just started recording, where we are going to be focusing on people who have really, truly gotten their voice out in the marketplace and started tapping on the idea of being a celebrity. So with that, everybody, this is Matt Halloran, and I will see you on the side of this camera very soon.